typhoons as the country enters the La Nina season. Here's a look at the threat of even more unpredictable weather, which experts say is linked to climate change.
Luzon is soaked from Typhoon Pedring with unprecedented floods we haven't seen since Tropical Storm Ondoy. Now, another weather disturbance, Kiel, is expected to become a typhoon over the weekend. This could be the country's 17th tropical cyclone from just 11 last year. Weather Bureau Pagasa says at least 2 more weather disturbances are expected before the year end. And worse yet, Pagasa says, with the La Nina season upon us, there will be longer rainy days and stronger typhoons. Experts say it's all part of climate change, extreme weather resulting from warmer temperatures. With changes in the factors defining weather conditions, the weather has become all the more difficult to predict, leaving communities at the mercy of floods and landslides and drought, and potential losses to life, property, and agriculture. Is there a way around climate change? What is government doing to mitigate it and help communities? And what will it take to turn things around before it's too late?
Joining us on Hot Copy today to completely understand what is going on with the weather, as they say. What's with the weather? Marianne Lucille Sering, Commissioner and Vice Chairperson of the Climate Change Commission, is with us today. Good day to you, Commissioner. So do we call you Commissioner?
Commissioner can call me Lucille.
Lucille, okay. Now, Lucille, explain. Is it normal that the Philippines experiences 21 typhoons a year?
Well, normal is not really a good way to say it, but let's just put it that this is something that we'll have to contend with in the next 10 years.
Okay.
It's not like we're talking about climate change, we're talking about all this scenario, and we wanted to know, why is it really happening?
Yeah.
As if we didn't know this already. We have been warned as early as a decade ago that things will change. And a lot of people won't admit it's climate change, but things are changing. And there are 3 impacts on climate change that I would like to point out and simplify it. Sea level rise, increase in temperature, and third, extreme weather events. The extreme weather events this is what we're seeing right now. What used to be a simple dry season becomes drier, and what's wet becomes wetter.
Explain that. El Nino and La Nina.
Yeah, that's one of the impacts. Second is the sea level rise. When we talk about, let's say, Manila Bay, which is going on right now, napagsama-sama, our infrastructure, climate change is not just about losing lives anymore. It's become an economic and development issue. When Ondoy and Peping happened, we suffered 2.7% of our GDP. In Manila Bay, for example, what is going on? Physically, we're looking at maybe our infrastructure is not good enough. But it was built long before and it withstood time.
Yeah, 20 years na yun. Hindi naman nasira ang seawall.
Correct. And if there's any seawall in the country that should be sturdier enough to stand all these things, it should be Manila Bay. Otherwise, no contractor would destroy the reputation if a seawall will be destroyed. But what we're saying is, it's getting to be intense. Coupled by sea level rise and water subsidence in Metro Manila. Over extraction of water. And then third, ang high tide.
Now, let's start specifically because we have video also. I don't know if it's ready, but video of the seawall damage. What happened to the seawall?
Well, I am not an engineer. But I know it's something that has to be revisited.
They said,
revisited on how we do our infrastructure. Maybe we're lacking that sense that Manila Bay Seawall is telling us something with the rest of our infrastructure and the way we use our money to build future infrastructure. When we talk about disaster risk reduction, one of the things that they're looking at historical, to just rely on historical anymore. Kasi tumitindi na. So when we talk about climate change adaptation, we're talking about future projection. According to Pag-asa, in 10 years, that's just around the corner, 2020, 9 years na lang, the Philippines during summer months will be drier.
Drier. So baka pwedeng heat stroke ang problem.
Sana naman wag. On rainy season, it's gonna be wetter.
More.
But Mindanao, even in rainy season, will be drier. So how will that impact now not only in our infrastructure and hydropower in Mindanao? How will it impact our agriculture? How will it impact on our infrastructure, agriculture, and other things that's important to the economy? So that's what we need to do in our planning right now. We have to be looking at the no regret anticipatory adaptation. Sabi natin, mali man ako, at least napaghandaan ko yung pinakamatindi.
No, I think, Lucille, it's very interesting because, frankly, no one takes the weather as seriously. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, of course, the United States takes the weather seriously. Continents that have 4 seasons. And then after the Al Gore documentary came out, but in the Philippines, what we do is just rescue. Di ba? We're disaster prepared. It's like we accept it. Ay, parating na yung typhoon. Eto tayo. What do you mean by actually planning for climate change? What does that mean?
First, we need to do vulnerability assessment. We don't have that.
Wala tayo?
Hindi completely. Meron ibang
nanunood ang malakas yan.
No, in fact, this is what President Aquino is prioritizing during his administration, is to start on vulnerability assessment. Meaning, any programs that doesn't have that is a waste of money, most probably. Because you're just doing a program, you say, well, I will adopt, this is my program. Well, what's your basis? You talked about the IPCC, I talked about Al Gore. There are actually 4 Filipino scientists who won the Nobel Peace Prize with him.
With Al Gore?
Yes. We're 4 Filipino scientists part of the, they call it the Interpanel Governmental on Climate Change. There's a group of scientists.
Nagtatrabaho ba sila para sa gobyerno?
Hindi. But they're part of our panel of experts right now in the Climate Change Commission. What we're doing is really mainstreaming this in the government planning.
You should.
The President created a cabinet cluster on climate change and the very good steps saying that he really
wants... Who is the head?
The chair is the DNR. We are the part of the cabinet cluster is the secretariat. At unti-unti na namin kami nagkakaintindihan. Nako, hindi na pala to basta na lang darating. Kasi nung pumupunta kami sa ating mga kababayan, sabihin nila, Commissioner, okay, winawarn nyo kami may bagyo. Pero sana dadating yung panahon na kung may bagyo, hindi na namin kailangan lumikas. Kasi babalik at babalik kami dun sa kabuhayan at bahay namin. So yung resiliency, yun yung kailangan ng government intervention na dapat natin talagang pagtuunan ng pansin. Example natin kung paano yung difference ng resiliency. US Embassy, ngayon resume operation. Kasi may pera.
Absolutely resilient. And not only
Sofitel, back on operation. But how about those in Hagonoy? How about those in the other areas? Those are the people we need to really assist right now. That the local government needs to be able to see that this is important and that we have to help them.
No, I'm so impressed with even how you used resiliency in economic terms.
That's right.
Sofitel, US Embassy, resilient. And nag-renovate ang US Embassy
Oh, that's true.
So hindi nga natakot, nag-reopen. Ibig sabihin, alam nila, kaya nila.
And they're beside the seawall.
Actually, they're almost nasa dagat sila. Ang US Embassy
ba't sila hindi nasira?
Hindi sila nasira, hindi binaha. Very good point.
So, this is where we start to think about even on good governance, even on leakage in resources, maybe the quality of our infrastructure na babawasan ng pera kasi nga may napupunta kung saan-saan. And hopefully, itong bagay na to, ang appeal natin is baka wag naman sanang garapal, ayusin naman natin yung mga infrastructure na. May scenario.
Hindi pinagnanakawan nga kasi yung mga infrastructure projects sa Pilipinas.
Ano lang, hindi ko ma-validate.
Yung mahirap, seawall, dike. I mean, this is not hitting on anyone specifically. But
it's happening.
It's happening. Bakit ang dike, ang daming butas na breach? Diba? Tapos makita mo ang liliit ng bakal sa seawall. No, now I want to ask you, what will Nueva Ecija do? If you were gonna do a solution to resiliency, it's a catch basin. Di ba nung nagbukas ng dam, yung tubig daw bumaba sa kanila, Nueva Ecija is flooded. 70% of agriculture damaged.
I know, and if you're talking about climate change in terms of greenhouse emission, agriculture actually emits more in greenhouse gases, especially if it's flooded.
Okay,
I'm not an expert in agriculture, but what we know is it's about time we sit down and really understand that this is happening. And there are trade-offs in changes. If we know it's going to happen and destroy agriculture.
Correct. You don't plant there.
You don't plant there.
I see. Naku, mahirap yan sa Pilipinas.
Now, if you don't want to plant there and people really insist on staying there, then maybe we should help on what kind of species of rice should we be able to plant that would withstand that, that would be able to survive that kind of
flooding. Good point. Na dapat yun lang ang tinatanim doon.
Alternative. Kasi alam na nating ayaw nating umalis yun ang pinakamahirap, yung psyche ng tao na ayokong umalis. Pero na lang kung yung taga-Provident na talagang nadala at nakarma. People did stay. So we want to sit down with the local government, understand how the economic impact actually, not just on the loss of lives, but on the economic impact, because we rely a lot on rice in Nueva Ecija. And it's gonna, now our food prices, every time these things happen, our food prices, goes up. And climate, and knowing that that's really one of the risks, just like any business, if that's one of the risks, we need to be able to understand how to reduce that risk.
Yeah. All right. Now, can you talk about, balikan lang natin, because it's the news for the day, is the situation between Rojas Boulevard and Manila Bay. Clearly, they are on equal level. Kaya nung pumasok yung alon, bahang-baha ang Rojas Boulevard. What do we do with something like that? It's a reclaimed area.
Nature somehow reclaims its...
Okay.
And this is just a reminder on what we're doing. We know already that this is happening. Even as early as 2009.
Yeah, what were the studies?
Yeah, in 2009, there was a study that came out that said the Philippines is ranked in the top 10 countries in the world whose global coastal areas will be most at risk in storm surges. Economic activity lang ang pinag-uusapan.
Storm surge to.
Storm surge.
Yun lang nangyari.
Noya, Ondoy, and Pepeng, we suffered about 2.7 of our GDP. And we needed another, almost the same to our reconstruction. So what do we do in areas such as this? I'm sure Sofitel will now try to rethink on how to fortify their seawall. And they, as a private sector, they have probably that capacity to do that.
And no politics to do it. They'll just decide.
But how will that affect their cost somehow they'll charge it somewhere else. And now we heard in the radio that MMDA chairman is thinking already of how to develop Manila Bay and how to make sure there's another layer. We hope he considers a vulnerability assessment on a future projection so that we should at least plan it that it could actually stand 10 years, 20 years based on what we see right now. Just look at these studies and look at them seriously and look at the pros and cons, and then we start from there. Vulnerability assessment is important in any project right now in government.
So why do you think they were saying, may breakwater ba ang MOA, Perry? They were saying ang MOA daw may breakwater, hindi siya binaha.
Because SM wouldn't invest on something they were not ready for. And there's so many investments there. It's the same way that we as government, when we spend, consider it our investment as well. And we cannot just do some investment and not think about this risk.
Very good
point. And hopefully, and us in the Climate Change Commission, under the Office of the President, together with our national panel of experts, we come together in different discipline and then put it on the table. And we really insist and cry it out loud so that, our managers, economic managers, and other development partners would listen.
Okay. All right. Now, we'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with Climate Change Commissioner Mary Ann Lucille Sering. Hot Copy. We'll be right back. Tweet your questions for Lucille. She'll be answering anything on climate change, vulnerability assessment, planning, anything regarding that. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Hot Copy. We're talking with Mary Ann Lucille Sering. You can call her Lucille if you see her around. Commissioner and Vice Chairperson of the Climate Change Commission. All right, questions from Twitter. Luntiang Pinas is asking, are we doing measures to address climate change issues? Should we shift to alternative renewable energy?
Oh, we're doing that right now. We are actually passed a Renewable Energy Act. This is the one, the use of solar, wind as sources of electricity. On ocean, we're also looking at it. We already have a National Climate Change Action Plan already in place. And we're just waiting for it to be really finalized in terms of the President on what are the priorities, because it's a very long-term plan.
Okay.
So we have that already.
So, Lucille, sa totoo lang, dun sa tanong niyang, are we doing measures to address the climate change issues? What aren't we doing?
We're doing a lot of things. And just like anything, they also need a corresponding financing support.
Okay.
But we have also support from our bilateral partners and international. That's why we go international to put our point to say, we cannot just do it on our own. And people, and then our friends also recognizing that we need help.
Okay.
And we're doing it.
All right. Yuan Reyes, please ask Ms. Sering, how are we mitigating the effects of climate change in our country? Any prominent initiatives or programs?
Oh, yeah. Again, I've said we have the National Climate Change Action Plan. I just want to be clarified on mitigation and adaptation.
Okay.
The mitigation in climate change is not the same as disaster risk mitigation.
Iba yun.
Ang climate change mitigation is simply reduction of greenhouse gases. What are those activities? We're looking at cars, we're looking at burning of oil. It's really a global response.
Okay.
Kasi the Philippines naman is not a major emitter of this greenhouse.
Pero I want to ask you this. When it comes to incinerating trash, kasi I tend to support yung mga, kasi I feel the sanitary landfill, our trash issue is hopeless. I mean, it's so easy to say, tell everyone to recycle. Ang urban poor naman hindi nagre-recycle. Nagtatapon lang ng basura sa ilog. So I'm already of the belief that there are some nations that incinerate. Are there incinerators that are actually, I mean, adaptable or good with climate change?
Well, there are a lot, as they say, technology could probably help us mitigate climate change, and we actually believe that it can. With respect to incinerator, for example, I know it was banned in the Clean Air Act.
Yes.
And just like any law, we also respond to changes of the times.
Yes. So you're open to it?
We're open to the discussion on that, and whether it should still be used.
Yes.
Considering the situation in the Philippines, why not?
Trash.
But it has to be a very thorough discussion, and we know that we've seen improvement in our clean air, but we improve in one, and then we also got worse in the others. But yeah, we're open to the discussion.
Okay. All right. Okay, wait. The notifications is ongoing on. All right. Sid Benedict, are there plans to coordinate with SHED-DepEd for climate change management, that it be incorporated in the curriculum?
We already have actually crafted a curriculum together with the DepEd, and we're now in the pilot stages on how to implement that. We already have that.
Okay. Dapat ba ituro talaga yun sa estudyante, ma'am?
Siguro awareness. Para lang, mahirap din kasi ini-integrate. An integration, for example, natin, hindi naman ganun kadali lang, ano? How do you, sometimes, isang pinag-uusapan, pati nga kung paano itagalog yung climate change, isa rin yun sa diskusyon namin sa pag-aaral. But we're really looking into it, and we believe that education is the first stage moving forward, especially for future leaders.
All right. Now, do you have a country that is like the Philippines that's a good model for resiliency? Can you tell us?
Not really specific in any countries, but everyone has. The thing is, this is like something na recently na nangyayari. We're all also going to that stage of experimentation.
Yes, but look at the Netherlands. They practically have seawalls and dikes around the whole country.
Yeah.
Never sila binabaha.
Pagdating sa sea level rise, which is our problem, we could look at Netherlands.
Mas malala sila.
But even in agriculture, we don't even to look far. Banawi rice terraces, tumagal naman yan ang indigenous practices. So,
mataas
hindi na natin kasi common ang problema, different yung responsibility. In fact, yung mangyayari sa Luzon is not necessarily what will happen in the Visayas or Mindanao. So it really is an effort wherein we have to go to the local government and make them understand on that level. And yan ang medyo very tricky pagdating sa pag-address ng climate change. But this is something we can't step away from. And we're going to do it. There's just no choice for us.
Now, you belong to the cluster of the President on the climate change cluster.
Yes.
Now, what kind of money does the government need, for example, to make sure that a disaster doesn't happen? Let's talk about like the seawall in Rojas Boulevard. How do you make that more resilient like the U.S. Embassy? Or Sofitel?
Maybe we should ask the U.S. Embassy what they did.
No,
but I think, again, when we plan it on a worst-case scenario.
Palagi? Dapat.
So, in fairness maybe to Manila Bay, especially that seawall, it has been there long before.
20 years.
They beautified it, but with lights only, but the wall is the same.
Yes.
So
they lowered the wall a bit, but the DPWH, the lowering is not a factor.
It's
kasi
really,
marami daw seawall na mababa.
Tumataas yung dagat, low subsidence, nagsama-sama na. So those are the things they have to put into consideration when they build the seawall again. Because every time that seawall in Manila gets hit, all of us listen.
Yes,
it happens in Pangasinan and Surigao, well, it's just another incident.
Yes.
But when it happens in your economic center, then it becomes a different story.
Now, have you checked, like for example, in Obando, Bulacan? It is flooded there even if it is not raining. Have you been there? I went there. They live on boats.
I'm sure. And somehow, even not only Obando, we're also talking about the one in Nabotas, Malabon.
Oh, yun.
Yung nangyari sa 2009, we didn't hear much from them. Somehow they were able to adapt, they raised their houses, they had their bangka, and they were able to somehow live with that kind of event.
Yeah.
But because
sadly, they even live with the trash.
yeah.
Okay, but go on.
So this is what we call adaptation, but at the same time, there's really no right formula on how to address it. And that we have to go back again on the attitude of people.
Okay.
In what happened in Ondoy, our trash contributed to the problem.
Okay.
And our Solid Waste Act, despite its passage in year 2001, 11 years after, the implementation is less than 10%.
Puro lang tayo batas?
Pero magaling tayo gumawa ng batas. Matalino ko sa matalino. Pero may mga bagay din na kailangan rin baguhin sa atin. Kasi tulad nga, recycling might not be enough. Maybe incineration should be looked at. And it really, again, goes back to attitude.
Yes.
In terms of money, it's so hard to project because every time it happens, it gets stronger.
Yes.
So it just seems to be, what we need to accept right now is that our money might not be enough to address this thing.
Correct.
If we just do reaction. So we have to be able to do it proactively and lessen our costs.
Now, how do you do it proactively?
Well,
with politics? I mean, with politicians, for example.
It's a very hard question actually to answer.
So do you go around?
We do go around, and when it hits them, that's when they start to listen. And in as much as we don't want these things to happen, but somehow it's a good motivation to change. And hopefully, we know already enough that it's going to hurt us not only on the lives lost, but also in our economic activity. Maybe we should really sit down now, understand the problem, and then decide, ano ba talagang gusto natin?
All right. Okay. We don't have enough time, but last words. I guess Typhoon Kiel is, I think, already in the country. It's going to hit us by the coming weekend, and 6 more typhoons by the end of the year. That's what Pag-asa said. So what do we do as a nation?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for inviting me. We really have to be prepared. And when we talk about preparedness, we should be able to allow ourselves to recover faster.
Yeah.
Because it's that recovery period that hurts us most.
Correct.
And we'd like to assure our kababayan, and together with President Aquino, that we're trying our best to try to put into most logical and practical way of making our government planning. And we in the Climate Change Commission will fight real hard to make sure that we talk with our other departments as well. We do our job in monitoring and evaluation, and we'll consider ourselves as the green auditor of government.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lucille.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Such a pleasure.